Welcome this evening to the Arrowhead Regional Arts Council. We're going to talk about goals, outcomes, and evaluations. My name is Holly Hackett-Rich. I use she, her pronouns. I am fair-skinned. I have long, dark hair. I'm wearing glasses, a black sweater, and there are many paintings on the wall behind me. I am going to do a little housekeeping here to help share. And I want to see so I can see everyone also. Oh, for goodness sakes. I can't. Mary, don't laugh. She's not. Okay. So just a little bit about us. I'm not going to read this verbatim to you. The Arrowhead Regional Arts Council serves individual artists, nonprofit arts organizations, informal art groups, community education. We serve a lot of people. You have to live in one of the 7 counties of the Arrowhead: Aiken, Carlton, Cook, Itasca, Lake, Couchiching, or St. Louis counties. Additionally, we have 4 tribal nations in our region: the Boys Fork Band of Chippewa, Fond du Lac Reservation, Grand Portage Band of Lake Superior Chippewa, and parts of the Leech Lake Band of Ojibwe. Our region comprises 22% of the state's geography. That is larger than 9 states that exist in the United States. We are huge, y'all. We are one of 11 regional arts councils in Minnesota. We are unique in that our state, through this legacy amendment, we have money that support arts in our state. We are the only state that has voted that in. So, yay, Minnesota. You're fortunate to live here. If you live in Wisconsin, get over here. Our mission is to facilitate and encourage local arts development. And this conviction or this mission statement grows from a conviction that arts improve the quality of life in the region. We believe that people should have opportunities to engage in the arts. Our vision for our region and that the arts are integrated into the social, political, and economic fabric and the identity of every community, and that it's accessible to everyone. And just a few simple rules: you must live in one of the counties, you must be 18 to apply. Eligible organizations, you'll see here: state registered, federally recognized nonprofit, tax exempts, accredited schools, tribal governments, and units of government. I am going to share with you right off the bat. This is, there's a whole lot of words here. So definitely go back, retrieve this workshop, do a screenshot or something. But this is some of the information that we give to our reviewers. And I have been very transparent as of late, and I've been sharing this information because I think it's helpful. If you see the directions they're following and what they're looking for, you can reverse engineer it.
Holly,
but
what are you intending to share screen? Just wanted to make sure it's
yes.
Okay, it's not sharing screen.
Oh, for Pete's sakes. Yes. Pardon me again for not being so techy.
Can you see the green? No, I can't see the screen, but I just assumed you were trying to share one. It should be the green button in the bottom middle, right?
There should be, but with this latest update, it's
delightful.
gone away. I'm just yammering on. Let's see.
And if you don't find one, you could send it to me and I could flick through for you if you prefer.
Oh, you are a beautiful human being. So sorry, everyone. Don't mean to waste your time. Oops. don't even know. Okay, here. I want to do it. So you all can't see my screen, right?
Correct.
Okay, in that case, Mary, I'm going to send this to you. Again, apologies. Oh, this is making me anybody out there who's really techie, who or even marginally techie, that could help me figure out how to share this. Okay.
Did you drag your cursor down to the bottom of the screen?
Link and edit. My cursor to the bottom. Let's see, I've got notes, I've got this, I've got. I'm gonna try. Okay. In the meantime, I'm gonna shoot one to Mary. Mary, see if you can do that.
Okay. I do have the share button, so as soon as I get the link or the file or whatever, I can share it.
Okay, I hope that works. If not, let me see some other. That was also not what I wanted to do. Says start subtitles. Oh, you know what? I'll start subtitles since I'm there. And I thought this was all.
There we go.
Do you
Got
have
it. It looks like I got it. Okay, OneDrive, goals and outcomes. It is opening up and I will share. I'll download it first. Open file. Okay, I will try and share this screen. Do you see things?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, your screen is wee.
Besides the fact that I don't have PowerPoint on this computer. It's fine. Alrighty. So yeah, let me know, just say click or something when you want me to change it.
Oh, gosh. You know, every day is an embarrassment, isn't it? So this was the information I was sharing about who we serve. You can go to the next screen.
This is the screenshot portion, right?
Yes. Next slide.
Did it go
It's
to the
not-
next slide?
No.
Oh my gosh.
No.
Beautiful.
I swear we have good information here. I swear to you.
Is it there now?
There we go.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it just won't let me go into presenter mode for whatever reason.
Okay. So reviewer tips. This is what I was talking about. I'm sharing this with you. This is some of the tips that our review panels receive. So whether you're applying with us, whether you're applying somewhere else, this is my new favorite thing to do and reverse engineer. So I'm not going to read this whole thing here, but like I wanted to call out this top one because it applies to what we're talking about tonight. Look for evidence, not assertions. An assertion is an unsupported statement such as audiences love artists we bring to our festivals every year. Well, that's real vague. That's just a really big broad statement. So instead, say 90% of 500 audience members surveyed at our 2015 festival gave the artist a rating of above average or exceptional. This is where we'll get into a bunch of qualitative, quantitative. Again, we will post this now that we've got everything working. So you can go back and grab these as a screen grab, or if you'd like, I can send it to you. Just give me a shout by email. Next screen, Mary. And this is more reviewing. So you want to be sure to look at your criteria, but then look at how, we're an anti-racist organization. We are a pseudo part of the Minnesota State Arts Board, and we follow their guidelines. So look and see, those special guidelines, that special criteria in any grants. Next slide, please, Mary. And now into the meat of things. Goals, objectives, outcomes, evaluations. So what is a goal? A goal is a very broad statement. Artists are very good at this. I'm going to save the world with my art. They're big and broad, they're visionary, they're general, they're intangible, they're abstract, hard to measure. Isn't that where most artists live? In our heads, right? A goal is really about the ultimate impact or outcome that you're hoping to achieve. And you always want to link those goals back to your grant proposal, to your initial statement. Mary, next slide, please. So what are objectives and how do you make them SMART? And you probably have heard this SMART used before. So objectives represent a step toward accomplishing a goal. An objective is narrow, precise, tangible, concrete, measurable. And if you use the SMART method, and if you get in the habit of this, I took, initially when I learned of this, I had like a little, do you ever do that on your laptops and you put little cheat sheets? Is it specific? It is measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. All of those things are very, very important and very key to a successful grant. And a goal is only as good as your objectives. Next slide, please, Mary.
There we go.
You got it. So objectives. Again, this isn't a great slide. It's got a lot of stuff, but I felt it needed to be cohesive. Objectives. So think of it as your overarching aim. They're the specific objectives as the specific framework of what will be accomplished. You can have many activities and the number of overall objectives should be clear and concise. So what is the problem or need? Be specific, be measurable. Is it achievable? Is it relevant? Is it time bound? So I have, and you can see here a little bit of an example, so specific, identify the outcomes that'll be achieved. What is the number of youth, the type of youth, the specific outcome? All of these you're going to kind of twist. They're kind of vague. I did them so they could be applied to individuals as well as organizations in many modalities. So whether you're doing arts learning and you're going to offer a class, or you're doing an exhibit and you need framing, you have to just decide what your parameters, what your objectives, and what your outcomes are going to be. This is the SMART is a very good way. If you hit all of those specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound, then you got it. Next slide, please. They get more readable. So things to keep in mind when you're preparing your objectives, and these are nice. I don't know if you can tell, I'm a list person. I like to have a reference right to it. Am I hitting all my points? Have I forgotten anything? And so state your objectives in quantifiable terms. So I have a definition here too between quantifiable and qualifiable. I'm going to state your objectives. That outcomes objectives should specify the result of an activity. Objectives should identify the target audience or community that you plan to serve. Objectives need to be realistic and something you can accomplish within the grant period. So for instance, here's a real common thing that we like to use as an example. If someone says, I need some time off, I need to have some money to cover my expenses. I'm going to take a month off and I'm going to write the great American novel. That is not specific. It is not attainable. You have not put a realistic time frame on these things. All of these things, people are going to say, well, they don't know what they're talking about then, because there's no possible way that they can do this. So you have to take those big overarching ideas that you have. And I like to say, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Break that big thought into these objectives, break them down. Maybe break your project down into different phases. If there are a ton of objectives you're working with, then say, I'm focusing on this phase right now. I see Mary shaking your head. Would you like to add?
I do that a lot. Shaking my head, and also the breaking down of things into phases. Because I think like a mistake I made early on as an artist was trying to, like, you want to have this amazing project that's going to be funded, and so you put this big complicated narrative together of all the things, and sometimes like for instance, a lot of the grants at ARAC are like around the $4,000 range, and like for a big project that's not actually a huge budget. It's a lot better to use that for like a small portion of it that's specific, and that you can accomplish in that grant period of a year. Rather than saying like, oh, I want to do, like, for example, when I did like the Chief Buffalo project, and it was a 3-year project with like 20+ murals, like that's not something that I could really like fit into the narrative of a $4,000 grant. So like breaking down, like, I want to use this for my time on like one specific set of walls, or like, I don't know, to build a website around the project or something like that, and then additionally, I think like with in thinking about like those long-term goals, I feel like I see a lot of people who will put like goals outside of the grant period into their grant, and like that's not something that we can necessarily evaluate when we're reviewers. Like, it adds to the overall narrative, right? There's nothing wrong with adding like, in the future, I want this to lead to other opportunities or XYZ things. But I think you want to make sure that you're first and foremost addressing like what will happen within the grant period, within that year after you get the money. Like, you will have this show that brings so many people of this specific background, or those quantifiable things within whatever event you have. So yeah.
Yeah, so like for instance, we've seen, film has really moved into the Duluth area, and we see a lot of that. I don't think there's a grant in existence that covers the expense of an entire film. So those
Right.
are always broken down, and so we'll see things, and as Mary can attest, for those bigger projects, you're often cobbling together several different sources of funding. You could have different grants from different agencies, all that. It's a lot of moving parts. So these are big. So it's really nice. Like, we're seeing, like, if someone comes to us, I recently had somebody, and they've done the bulk of filming. They're doing a film, and basically, so they've already done most of this work, and now they're saying, okay, we're in this last part, we're in post-production, we need money for this part. So that's when you want to share, this is the successes, this is what we've already accomplished, but now we need your help in this next part. You don't want to spend a lot of time focusing outside of what you're requesting for. Mary and I often talk about the social woes. You can identify a problem, you see a social woe, and you think that you can help in some way. We see these things and it'll go on and on and on and on and on about the social problem. And we're
Right.
like, ultimately, that's great. What are you going to do about it? We don't need to know more about the social problem. We're all pretty aware, you know, we want you identify it briefly, and then you go into the mechanics of your project and how it is going to affect said social problem.
I think like one or two sentences is good for the subject of whatever artwork you're creating. Like if you're doing a whole series of paintings on like climate justice and stuff like that, like that's the climate justice isn't the focus of the grant. Like the actual production of the work and the community engagement and the artistic, like, and everything related to the artistic criteria that are listed is going to be your focus. So I just tell people just like get a nice thesis statement put together about the topic. So then people know like, oh, that's like a really interesting, like to the point, like I would like to know more about that. And I think like painting or music or whatever medium you're using is going to like break down that topic more.
So next screen. So, and more things to keep in mind. And these are little hints to drill deeper down on, you know, include relevant groups in your target population. Don't forget to budget for the evaluation measurements of your objectives. You have to be realistic in how long things are going to take you. You also have to be realistic in you have to value your time. We're done. We are so done with starving artists. Quit giving away your art for free. You know what? Most people who are artists, they have studied, if nothing else, they have practiced, they have put in that time. It is not something that we wake up with this inherent talent and can just, you know, give all of our work away for free. It is still work. So always pay yourself, always pay your collaborators. I like to make that point every time. If anyone is ever saying, oh, well, you'll get exposure and you'll get those things. And if you're not comfortable, I will be your mama bear and I will call up and explain to them why artists need to be paid. So part of advocacy. So you want to bank those things in. And even if you want to volunteer your time to your project, you want to record it as in kind. State your value. And while I'm on this soapbox too, also, you are an artist. You might not feel comfortable calling yourself an artist. It is a Midwest problem for sure. So are you a creative? Are you a maker? Are you just artistic? All of those things qualify under artist. I know it's very difficult. And then when you're writing in that voice for your grant, you write in terms as solidly as you have to establish these goals and objectives and outcomes. You have to establish your voice. So you be solid, stand in that power of being an artist and write as though you are already doing this. You're telling us the story of your project, lay it all out for us, and you talk about it. I am going to do this. I will blank, but you know, because so much it's like, oh, geez, you know, if I get the funding, I hope to blah, blah, blah. Don't hope to do anything. Don't if you did anything, you're doing it. You are confident. I know it's hard. It took me years. if you need a little cheerleading session, I'd be happy to Zoom with you and also while we're at it, it's probably what I do for feedback the most is go through and change and say, no, I don't hope, I am going to. With these funds, I will, not if. Don't even put that in the reviewer's mind. Next slide, please, Mary.
Can I add a couple things?
Oh, please.
Yeah, I think also on the note of like the ifs and I hope, like you have a word count when you're filling things out, and adding like fluffy language about like if you're not confident in yourself, like think of it in terms of just editing and like having space for your word count. Like adding I hope to an I am statement is going to add like 2 characters, which at the end of the day sometimes makes a difference. And then on the second one of like including relevant groups and individuals in your target population, I've seen a lot of people like more on the side of like organizations who will be like, I want to reach more like Native American people during this process, or like we intend to bring a Black artist, and so we hope to reach Black communities with this project. And sometimes it like don't use it as just to like fill out the criteria and feel like you're going to get more points, because people will be able to identify like if you don't have a plan, like a marketing budget, or like if you historically haven't reached those groups and you're just saying it in the grant to be like, oh yeah, no, like I want to do that, and then you have nothing like, you know, action items in your grant that would allude to you being able to do that, then it's going to be caught. So like make sure that you actually like mean the goals and intentions of your thing, and don't do it just because you think it will like increase your odds. Because again, well, I feel like, you know, reviewers are going through so many different grants, and like the more fluff you add, like it's kind of ends up making it worse for you, because you're making grant reviewers crabby. You know, like they're spending time to like take you seriously, and so don't add things that don't need to be there. I feel like it's like less is more, but like less that's specific and just direct to what you're doing, instead of trying to put everything in there that you feel like, I don't know, will benefit you.
Well, and I think too, like you said, you know, the famous saying, write drunk, edit sober. So, you know, throw out, I often say, I'm just word vomit onto a page, all the objectives, all the stuff, all the whatever, then go back and see, you know, what is vague and what is, you know, quantifiable and what is qualitative. So let's see. What outcomes will be specifically accomplished? And you want to include your baseline, because if you say, you know, we're going to do, I want to see an increase of 15% on my, you know, Insta followers. Okay, well, where's your baseline? And what is 15%, or what is that number to you? And you know what I mean? That it, instead of vague, like I want to see an increase. Well, I want to see, even just going from, I want to see an increase to, I want to see a 15% increase. I'm currently at this, I would like to see this kind of increase in traffic.
And you don't have to meet that goal entirely. Like I think a lot of people too are like, oh, I said like I have to get this 15% increase or whatever. If you get 14 or 13, like, you know, we're not gonna take the money away. You know,
Right.
It's just a goal to have there to think about.
It's a goal that you're striving for, because ultimately you have to, if you receive a grant at the end of the granting period, you and when your project is complete, you have to complete a final report, and that's as much for you as it is for us. So if you didn't reach your goal, you say it's time for you to go, okay, what worked, what didn't, what would you do again, what would you change? you know, that kind of thing. We're not in the business of wanting your money back, quite honestly. We don't quite know what to do with it. When it comes back, it becomes problematic. So we want you. We take a lot of care in these reviews and try to choose everyone who will be able to complete that, because we are stewards of public money and we take that very seriously. So ultimately, you know, we want you to succeed in these things. You set a goal, you don't necessarily have to achieve that goal, but you know, we hope that you can achieve the project without maybe, you know, because like you can say, my goal is to do 20 paintings. Well, if you manage 15, we're not going to be like, well, then we need a portion of that money back. We're not holding you to that. We're holding you to your overall project. Next slide, please, Mary. So these are really good questions to ask yourself for evaluations. How will you measure the success of the completed project? How will you measure your objectives? Will data be collected to evaluate the project, qualitative or quantitative? How will this data be analyzed? How will this information be shared with others and the public? So quantitative, you are measuring the quantity, the number, and qualitative, you're measuring the quality. So as you might imagine, qualitative is a little more abstract than the quantitative. So as much quantitative information that you can provide, it is helpful. It is a number. I put the definitions of quantitative and qualitative there in case there's any confusion. Next slide, please, Mary. So, and ways to measure these things. And this is so many people, it's like, because we have that question in this narrative, how will you know you've been successful? So for instance, if you say, I did all my paintings and I had my show, that doesn't tell us anything. You know, how many exhibits did you have? How many paintings did you complete? How many people attended your exhibit? How many tickets were sold? So now with these funds that we have, these state funds, there has to be a public component to your work. You cannot do something for a private group. You cannot do something
that you charge a lot of money for that no one can access.
Yeah, that no one has access to. It's got to be like open and accessible to the public. And then COVID happened and the public no longer existed. And we were not about to say, you still have to go out there and do that. You know, that's not. So very simply, right off the bat, I tell everybody, if you have any social media presence at all, that is such an easy way to measure so many things. You can put that out there because you can then go and review your analytics. And you can say things like, I want to see an increase, you know, a percentage increase or number of followers by so much. You can see I use the example of sales or views, sending out surveys. It's great wherever you are, and especially if you're physically, now that we're kind of back in the world, physical surveys are great, but virtual surveys also, it's nice if you give some sort of incentive or call to action to complete that, and then you'll find out just how successful. So, you know, the number of people who completed, how many surveys did you send out? How many did you get back? What, you know, then you can really take, if they had comments for you, that's a really good building thing for you to improve your game. You know, what's working, what's not. You know, number of people who would come to your performance again or come to your show again. So as you can see there, I've just got, did I mention numbers? Numbers, 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 numbers. Miri, what do you have to say about numbers?
Yeah, I think, I mean, when you mentioned surveys too, like as a reviewer, so I always like give people the advice that like when you're applying for grants, like think about if you were going to get a tie, because it happens all the time when you're reviewing grants. Like there's always like 2 or 3 or 4 different applications that are like exactly on par with each other, and there needs to be one thing that breaks the tie. And so generally it's going to be like how closely you followed the criteria. So making sure that you've like answered all of the questions, and additionally, like what are the little extra details that you used room for to like be thoughtful about your measurements. And so like, for example, I really appreciate like instead of saying like I will provide a survey to the audience, I like to see like what is an example of 1 or 2 questions that will actually be on the survey. And because like if all 4 of those people say like I want to put a survey, you know, and one of them gives an example of the question, that person is probably like, if there aren't other factors in their equal applications, that person's probably going to get the tie break just based on that one extra detail that they put in there. And then also I think like with measurements, you know, like use it as an opportunity to figure out like what you want to get out of the project too. So like a lot of people will write grants to take classes or to like develop their career in some way. And so like what are the specific skills or abilities that you want to have at the end of the grant period, whether that's like doing more of whatever public events, or like having that first experience of hosting your own public event. Like if you were an artist who only ever did group stuff. And then yeah, I think like the main thing is to remember that like your measurable outcome portion isn't going to be like, you've got it wrong if you say you want to complete the project, or any variation of like, I'm going to complete the project, whether it's like, I'm going to complete the painting, I'm going to have the show, I'm going to have this, like that is implied because you are already like applying to do the project. So we are assuming like moving forward as reviewers that like that is what's going to happen. And so don't waste the measurement space repeating that. Use it to just really dive into, like you were saying, like the qualitative and quantitative stuff, the numbers, and then also like what are the thoughtful forms of feedback you can get. I think like staying within a budget is a goal that you could have, or like having a goal of having like 3 newspapers, you know, if there's 3 newspapers in your town, cover like write positive reviews, or having feedback from mentors. You can be creative and like, I don't know, set aside some budget, or just ask like people who are in your field to give you feedback. And that is an outcome that, you know, is not frequently used, but I use it a lot. So that's my secret to pass to you all. Yeah, or like I want to be invited to like 12 more shows after, or like in the grant period. So like, you know, if you get invited to 10, like congrats. But also, you know, it works. So yeah, or like just any experiences that you get to have as a result of creating the work. So and that I guess is super broad. But yeah, don't just say I'm gonna do the project, because we literally walk into it like with the belief that you will do the project. So save your space and energy and write what matters.
It's true. We have about 10 minutes remaining. Does anybody have any question? Well, and I would like to say too, though, so Mary and I both are happy to talk with you. We can do Zoom meetings, phone calls. You can come to the office, you know, set up a time that we're here, just shoot us an email. And we can help you talk through those things. If you're not sure of your objectives, we can help you kind of break that elephant into pieces that are more manageable. We, can meet, we're speaking in these kind of vague terms right now, but we meet and brainstorm with people and help them realize their projects, find their voice, make all their points. Because again, if you look at it in the way that it is the story, you know, however you, whatever you're comfortable with your writing style, you're writing a story about the project you want to do, why you want to do it. You're talking to somebody who may know nothing about your discipline, so you have to fill them in on what it is you do and how you do it. You know, a poet is not going to understand what it takes to be a working musician. A writer may not understand what it takes to create an oil painting, you know. So just so you know, I get people, once a grant round is closed, I choose the panel based on excuse me, the disciplines that are represented in the grant round, so that we can have many different people. So in the panel discussion, let's say the poet doesn't understand the musician, so we'll have a musician who can help, and then there's discussions, and then we put in our final scores. But I just wanted to say, you can reach out to Miri and I. Steve also at admin, all this contact information. He does kind of the first line of questioning. Miri and I get into projects, language, things of that. However, but Miri's overseas right now, so she's not real available, because Miri is really good at grants. And would you like to tell them what you're doing over there?
Oh goodness, yes. I'm in Austria right now, so it's literally like 2 in the morning, and I'm here for an artist residency that I wrote a application for or whatever. I am like vaguely available if like you are planning on applying for, well, I'll be back on the 20th or whatever, so we've got time. But if you want to go over or like send anything my way to review, I love looking at people's stuff, and that's what I get paid to do. So please give me work. And I think too, like, you know, another strong point of like this presentation is like a lot of like grants have like a problem and a solution. Like that's a big part of the equation. So make sure that you're spelling out the problem and like describing like, you know, what is it that you need and why, and then like how is this funding going to change it. And then this is literally like grants are my where I geek out. But I think additionally too, like thinking about where you are at in your career. So like if you're an emerging writer and like your goal is to publish like this world renowned novel and have like all of this stuff that combines with it, like when we talked about like condensing down, like that might not be an achievable goal if you've never like published like, I don't know, anything before, or like you could scale that down to like a pilot project or something like that. Like you can do smaller versions of that big goal as like stepping stones to make you reach that big goal. I don't know if writers were a good example there, but like, you know, or like if I put it in terms of like painting, like, I don't know, maybe your goal isn't necessarily to have like a solo show at this huge gallery that's super competitive when you've never done a solo show before, but maybe you want to do it in a coffee shop first. Like it's still a solo show, but like, you know, kind of building up and adding to that story in a way that makes sense. Because yeah, it just adds to the feasibility when you're looking at criteria. Yeah, and I'm in Austria. I'm very tired. Jet lagged.
So she knows of what she speaks. Did we have any questions? We still have a good 10 minutes. We can go a little over given my technical challenges as we started. Apologies. Captain America, AKA David Beard.
So, hi there, everybody. Super glad the students have been wrapped with attention. But I have a question to ask, because I've been spending most of the semester making them deeply suspicious of surveys that You know, the people who fill out the survey are the people who hated it and the people who loved it. And, you know, and like so how do I negotiate the deep level of suspicion I've implanted in these students about survey evaluation tools with all the good things you've said tonight?
Right, it is a really good evaluation tool. Also, the suspicious, here's what you do. It's a little bit of psychology and you turn it. And so don't ask them. You ask them what they liked about it. What was your favorite part of the show? What did you find most value in? If you ask positive questions that make people think in positive ways, you're more apt to get a favorable response. If you ask for criticism, you're gonna get it. So what are you looking for? You know, you at the end, it could be like, what, you know, if you wanted, we're looking for that improvement part, you know, what if anything would you change? Would this have made a better experience for you? But you know what? Lead in that positive, put people in the positive frame of thinking. You know, if you're ever married, you get real good at it.
Wow.
Make them think it's their idea. Make them, you know, you plant that seed of positivity.
This is feeling like a class of manipulation, Holly.
And I'm really not good at manipulating, but don't plant that seed of negativity. If you plant that, you know, what you plant will grow. So plant that positivity, plant, you know, I mean, are you kidding me? I'm one of those. I'm like, manifest, man. You gotta
Well,
bring
and
all
also
that
like,
to you.
And let me kind of, Miri, I want to hear what you have to say, and because I love your feedback. The students are taking a lot from it, but I'm also kind of worried about the 60% of people in the middle who don't log in to a website or fill out a card, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Well, and the fact of the matter is you can't make anyone do anything. You know, if you have a call to action, and we have been surveyed to death over COVID, you can be suspicious. I'm just plain sick of them sometimes. But in those settings, in those more intimate settings, if you're doing a smaller project, performance, gathering, whatever, usually those people, they want to support you. They want to see you succeed. You know, it's like every time someone gets up to public speak and you get nervous, we all do. But I'm like, you know what? Most people, I don't want to see somebody fall on their face when they're speaking. I'm wanting them to succeed. So if you have this good support network, get that feedback, because then you have that thing in terms of granting, you have numbers. Now you can share, so you have a survey. What does that survey show you? What did you learn from the survey? You don't have to report that 98% of people thought my thing was crap, right? You say, you specifically ask them, how could it be improved? You know, I learned more people would have attended if I'd have set my time differently. Take those complaints and what is it that you learn from them? Okay, so I got X amount of surveys back and I learned this. And here is my qualitative and quantitative. If they thought it was garbage, you might want to not share so much on the qualitative, but it's again kind of that angle and what you do. But ultimately, people need a tangible to hold on to. So, and my tangible, I'm meaning more so numbers. So if you can turn whatever experience it is into numbers, I hope to get 3 solo shows, or not, I hope to. Well, if it's like your first show, this is going to open me up. My goal is I will receive 3 invitations to 2 shows in the future.
Miri, I kind of cut you off. Was there something you wanted to toss in?
Yeah, I mean, I can throw a couple of things in the mix just to broaden the conversation a little, but I think not every project needs a survey. So like assessing, like, is it relevant? Is there information that you actually want to get from the audience? especially in like those instances of like, if you're trying to get the audience to feel a specific way with your project, or if you're trying to like get them to think a specific way, then like surveys are a really good way to assess like whether or not that was something that happened. I don't really like surveys where it's like, this was good or bad, because, and that's why I like when people include like, what are the questions you're asking? Because again, like, I feel like sometimes people include survey, just like with the demographic thing, they'll throw it in there as like, this meets the requirement. And again, if you're in that situation of like, what's the tie? Like, having that level of specificity and relevance to like why you're having that survey could be a point. And then additionally, like, I don't know, I think of surveys, you can have like the paper and the online, but also just like surveying people, like if you have a listening session during your event and just talk with people and gather that feedback in a verbal way, and not label it as a survey, label it as like the listening session or the Q&A or the talk back or the round table or whatever terminology you want to use to describe like just a conversation that's a little bit less intimidating for people who hate surveys. And then let's see, I wrote a note of like something in the future. So like if you do like, I don't know, maybe you do get a lot of like terrible, shitty feedback where people are like, like this is really bad. I mean, I've gotten bad feedback on things which wasn't warranted, but you know, besides that, being able to use like that feedback in future applications and things and being like, I got this bad feedback specifically, like here's a quote, here's how I am addressing this in my next project. That could be another angle that you could approach a grant from, because ultimately, again, you're telling the story of the project. Maybe it's been rejected by like 10 funders prior to. What was the feedback that you got on that? What are you coming back to this new grant with, taking in that learning experience of being rejected 1,000,001 times?
Right. And so
those are the
instance,
3 things.
for us to, you know, we really recommend asking for that feedback. Not everybody has the capacity to give you feedback. Sometimes they're dealing with thousands and thousands, you know, of grants or whatever. But if there is the ability to request feedback, do it. Get those reviewer notes. It cannot hurt. I even have people who receive grants and still get the feedback because there's always something to glean from that information. So, you know, and grants are kind of a weird, fickle, unpredictable thing. You can't say with certainty any projects. You know, Mary and I are well aware of this, where I'd be like, I thought for sure it would be that one, but they went with this. And, you know, it's very different. So don't take it personally. Build on not only your successes, but your failures. You're really probably going to learn more from those failures. So ask for that feedback. Don't take it personally. It's not a personal thing. It's the, you know, it's competitive, but there's a different panel every time. People are different every time. You know,
lots of humans involved. Like, I think that's the demystification of grants overall, is like reminding people that it's just humans who are reviewing their thing, and they're not like, a lot of the time it's volunteers, you know. So making sure, like, if you were to, I always recommend people just serve on a panel if you can at some point in time and just get that experience of like what it does to you when you're just like exhausted, and like, you know, those people who copy and paste the same answer in every section really are like the bane of, like, I don't know, humanity. Like, I cannot stand when people waste my time on an application. Rather you just write less, you know, because sometimes people think they need to just fill the space, and it's like, no, that's actually not helpful. If you said what you needed to say, stop. But,
yep, less is more, and come out on top. You know, state those objectives, state those goals up on top. Do not make the reviewer go through all your stuff and all your attachments to find out what your objectives are.
don't be sneaky and creative in your writing and be like, oh, if I hide it in here, it'll make more of an impact. Just literally, like, I've written so many grants where it's like like full sentences, but bullet points when it needs to be. Like, if you've got a timeline, just bullet point it, you know, like it doesn't doesn't
Timeline
have to be
bullet
like,
points. Just think of, when you're writing a grant, think, you know, at the minimum, whoever's reading this is also reading 25 other grants, in the very least, on their own time. And, you know, don't make them go hunting and pecking, put it all up really easy. And what might seem obvious to you, you know, do lay out your steps and what it takes to create your art. Because people don't, you know, people don't understand. Just, you know, I
they'll
always like
quote
to
it
say,
too.
tell me like I'm four, you know?
Yeah. Like literally, if a lot of the time on panels, like if it's a decent reviewer, they will literally like highlight the parts where you did that, where you outlined the answer, and they will just read it. And sometimes that's all, like they will be like, they answered it. That's it. That like, that's 100% of what we're looking for. So being really clear in that way, can make just such a huge difference.
Do not, and avoid, flowery language, excessive flowery language. It just becomes words. What's your point? Get to your point. So, were there questions? I mean, the other thing is too, is please, if any of you have any questions, you don't feel comfortable in this setting, asking those questions, send us an email. You know, we'll get back to you. We'll set up meetings. We'll do whatever it is. Mary and I, we're grant geeks. We like helping people. I mean, people and all their projects and all their stuff. It's very exciting. I'm constantly inspired, and I've done very little art because I'm overwhelmed with my inspiration from everybody else. Any questions? Serenity, I see you have your hand up.
Okay. So I was wondering if you had to, okay, so you're creating measurable success, things that you can go through, making a survey, or hoping to find analytics from social media. Do you have to write that in your grant that you're going to go through the process of creating a survey, or can you just like assume that people know that you are creating like a survey? Or does that make any kind of sense? You know, do I have to write that I'm going to do something for that part, or does it have to be part of my project?
Sorry, somebody literally popped on another chat and was like talking over you, and I was like, I'm in a meeting. Can you repeat your question? I'm sorry. It was literally like, I love you, Mary. It's so great you're online. I'm like,
Rude.
Yeah, I was just
they didn't
wondering
know.
if do you have to, okay, so if you're creating a survey, do you have to put that in your grant as part of your project, your measurable successes and the work you're gonna have to do for like making social media posts, or can that be just kind of assumed?
I think it's good to kind of spell it out, or at least have like a sentence or two or a couple bullet points where you're just like, yeah, like this is,
Yeah,
you know.
like if I was going to make a YouTube video, I don't have to say that this grant is going to go towards all the time editing and creating the YouTube video. Just like, oh, I'll make YouTube videos out of this project, and then I'll get feedback from those YouTube videos and measurable successes. But that doesn't have to be if your goal is more about making paintings, or would I say like that's in kind time?
If you're
That
investing,
could be, I would say that could be, hi Molly. I think that could be in the context of the story of the whole project, right? So like if your goal is to create the paintings and to do stuff with the paintings, like part of your marketing could be that YouTube video portion, right? Or like what purpose does that YouTube video serve? And then like if it is a part of it, like you can include like the time that you're editing and things like that. if that's something that you want to charge for, or at least include that as an in-kind for marketing. If like the video, again, whatever reason that you're making the YouTube video is there, even if it's not the focus, because it's an evaluative tool that you could use depending on kind of like what the full story of your your project is, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Yeah, it really helps.
And include that like in your timeline. You know, the reality of the time it takes to do that, because some people may have no concepts of how involved that might be. You know, and then you're doing it yourself. You could even, you know, get a comparable estimate from somebody who does it professionally. And then you can say, well, they charge X amount of dollars. So I don't do it professionally, and maybe I'll back off that a little bit, but you know what I mean? To do that, because some people might be like, I don't even know what that means to make a YouTube video, and how does that relate to a painting, you know? So you have to tie those reasons to it too. Well, it is now 6:39. Does anybody have any questions you're just dying about, or are you going to reserve them and contact us outside of this space? I will not send you a survey. I hope you found this helpful. Any feedback is helpful to us. I'm happy to take any. I don't think we pretty much do any presentation twice, because every time there's something that can be improved on. So, John, you had a question?
I have a comment.
Oh,
I have found this helpful.
good.
A lot of the time I had my hackles raised, and I was really pissed off about all of this managerial metrics being attached to art. Swear word, swear word, swear word. Sorry, fuck you. And I stayed with it, and I listened, and I found how I could work that into the work that I do.
It is. I mean, you know, as an artist, you're also an entrepreneur. If you're a working artist and you're selling your stuff, you are also a business person and an entrepreneur. And for these fundings, and the thing about it is, once you kind of do your first grant or have a grant, you have your working pieces to it, then you have a template to work from forever. You know, keep those in your computer on a different thing. You copy and paste. A lot of those things will still apply. I will also share that, you know, you can bang around out on the internet, and there's a lot of articles that talk about this. If you go to the Minnesota State Arts Board, they have example in whatever program that they're offering, they have example grants available. So you can see them, you can see how other people use that language, you can see what other people are using in terms of measure. I don't like to share our region's work, because even though we are huge, the artist community is pretty well, you know, interconnected, and some people have worked really, really hard to become good grant writers, and I don't just want to share their work, but I'm willing to share the people in the city's work. So, you know, get those, look at those examples that they provide. You know, you can copy and paste, make a little file and have different things, have your word vomit stuff, and then how you pare down from there, you know, have your stages. And then, you know, life is too short to reinvent the wheel. You know, take what you have, then you just have to update maybe your resume, your artist statement, all those things. Take your existing stuff, tweak it, update it, apply it to whatever grant you're applying for. you know, copy, paste, repeat.
That's what I do. I've been doing this for decades. And it still pisses me off.
Yeah, no, I feel that 100%. That's why, like, I think for me, it took just like thinking of it like, okay, kind of like F what, you know, the granting organizations necessarily want, and like try and figure out a way to make it important to you. Like, what are the things that would be interesting for you to explore as far as like what metrics are interesting, like what do you want to know about your audience, or what they think of your work, or how it fits into this big context world. And I think those are the most powerful like things beyond just like like how many people showed up. Like we give that as an example, but also everybody uses that, and I don't find that as interesting of a metric as like, you know,
Right.
the things that are relevant to you. So
And that's what I did as I listened, and I thought I had to tweak it and make what would be more interesting for me.
mhm.
What do I want to find out about the work that I do and the people? What are they seeing?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that provides a lot of impact. Those are those passion things too, because it's just as much that your commitment, your passion, all those, you know, it's kind of like it's the measurable outcomes are kind of the sterile, basically, and think of it as you're reporting to the state, you know, because this comes through the state and you need to tick all the boxes because they're not thinking from an artistic, even how the arts benefit. They're looking, they want quantifiable numbers.
Yeah.
That's
So they
the
don't
only
lose
thing.
that, you know, so we don't lose the funding on a lot
So
of
we
things.
don't
I
lose
think
the funding, that's just it, because there are certain sides of the aisle that look for fault in these things, that look for fluff and try to pull apart, and how is that benefiting the arts, and we shouldn't have this funding anymore. So unfortunately, and we have taken great pains, we have shortened our applications. We considered it an access issue, definitely. We put all the boring reporting, like what county you are, how do you identify, blah, 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 blah. That stuff is for the end. You know, get into the meat of what you are doing, be excited about your project, share that with us. And then, so like Mary and I, we're happy to provide feedback as you go, as you're writing. If you hit a wall and you're just like, I don't know, is this making sense? We can come back and help you with that language, or give you a little more direction, or you want to pull away from this aspect of it. You know, it's a good idea to have somebody else, whether it be us, whether it be a friend, but someone who doesn't understand your discipline, let's say, and to read and then ask them if they understand the story of your project.
Yeah, ask your worst case scenario person, like the person who's just not like, you would never
just
want to
doesn't
read
get
your
it.
stuff and get their feedback, and it can, you know, add some perspective. I think too, just like, I mean, everybody finds their own style of grant writing. Like for me, I like to do like that boring chunk of demographic stuff first, so it's out of the way, because I turn things in the last minute, and sometimes like if I don't push all the buttons fast enough, I don't get the grant in quickly. But then additionally, like bullet point out all the boring stuff too, because like whatever's boring and necessary, just bullet point it. And then after that, I'll try and write a couple sentences about like how to make it interesting, I guess, or the excitement portion of it. So it's kind of like thoroughness, so making sure you check all the boxes. And then this other half is just like, are you excited? Like, do you make people feel good? You know, like as a reviewer, are they going to just like feel like, oh, this is something that I want to see myself, even if I don't understand the medium? I think my most successful grants have literally been ideas that like were feasible, but they were just ideas. Like I have a show called like Rights of the Child, right? And it was just an idea, and it was a really cool idea for me. And so I wrote about like here's how I'm gonna do it. Here's why it's cool. And it was just exciting enough to like, you know, get funded. But yeah, just picking, I don't know, the things that inspire you or motivate you, and not going too big with it. Like with that Rights of the Child show, originally I wanted to do human rights as a whole. And then I got feedback from people who said, maybe you should focus on a specific area of like subject matter for now, you know, and pursue the other aspects of human rights in future exhibits. And like that worked, breaking it down to, this is what I can manage with, I think it was a $10,000 grant. So this is what I can manage with 10K is one show, one part of this big idea that I hope to explore. And that big idea kind of goes more into your your artist statement, right? Like, what is the big picture of the work that you want to accomplish, and how are these little projects like linking up to the ultimate goal? Another word of advice is don't use the human condition in your descriptor of what you want to do. I think it's literally the most common artist statement of all time is my art explores the human condition. Biggest pet peeve, because like what aspect of the human condition? Like it's my belief that every piece of art out there has some aspect of humanity to it because it was created by humans. So like dig deeper, but the side tangent.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. It's nice to see you.
Good to see you, Holly.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming here tonight. I hope that you found some useful information here. We will be posting this in our workshop tabs. I'm happy to send you any of the slides if that would be easier for you. And I'm certainly happy to talk with any of you at any time about your grants. And Mary, go to bed.
I know. Right? I had more energy than I thought I would at 2 a.m. So I hope I didn't wake my roommate though.
I hope so too. So we have next Wednesday, also we have Basic Grant Writing 101, and that's a lot of fun. Thanks, Serenity. Thank you all for coming. Have a good night.